Langone. He is the chairman and CEO of Invamed Associates. He's the co-founder of Home Depot and the former New York Stock Exchange board member. We want to get your thoughts on what's happening with the debt ceiling, first of all.
It'll be revised. It'll be taken care of. The debt ceiling is a done deal. They don't know it yet, and they're going through this grand theater down there. But we have to do it for obvious reasons. But if we don't take advantage of this inflection point to address the bigger issue, which is the baby you're about to have in September, that baby's grandchildren. That baby's grandchildren are what we're leaving behind. And that's, to me, what we need to address. And this is not party. This is not a political issue. This is not liberal versus conservative. This is the real world. So many of these people in the subprime crisis got in trouble for one reason. People loaned them money they couldn't pay back. People paid their debts. None of this would have happened. We're heading in that direction. But there's a bigger issue to me. The debt ceiling will be raised, number one. They'll
by
come,
next week?
Yeah, by next week. They'll come to some juncture where they're going to say, well, this is not what I wanted, but it's the best I can get. Both sides. It's going to happen. Trust me. We need to understand as a nation that you can't forever expect somebody out there, whether it's China or whether it's somebody in England, to say, I will always take America's debt no matter what. We will reach a point, for example, right now interest rates are at historically low levels, and I would argue unrealistic levels. If you go to what would be a more realistic level,
4.5%?
Well, I'm talking about two-year treasuries, 2.5%, 3%. Okay? You add, based on the current debt, you add $300 billion a year
of cost
to the interest bill of the United States of America. It's got to come from somewhere. We are heading into a dose of reality we've never seen before. One of them is, look at the number of states that are now laying people off, because you know what? They can't print paper. And their debt levels have already been downgraded in many cases.
Do you think then that what's on the table in Washington is not enough, meaning that this inflection point is not being used properly because the plan unto itself is not going to be big enough? And we've talked about this around this table, that ultimately we're kicking this can slightly down the road towards the next election. Is that the right way to do this, or should we go for a bigger plan?
You remember the movie Moonstruck, when the old man gets in the kitchen and this guy left that girl and they're together, and he walks in and he listens to all this and he says, I'm confused. I don't know what the hell's on the table today, and I don't think most Americans do either. There's been so many iterations. There's been so many slicing and dicing. I know one thing, make it, you know, the thing the American people respect more than anything else, keep it simple, stupid. Okay? This is not complicated economics. This is very simple household finance. You don't borrow more than you can pay, because if you can't pay it, you lose the car, you lose the house. This is not highfalutin, all these measure risk, and all the American people understand one thing. When you borrow more than you can carry, you get in trouble. We are there. We are there. Now, I think people like me have to understand that it isn't business as usual, and I've said this before on the show. I should not get Social Security. I think it's a travesty for a man of my success and of my means to get anything from the federal government. I think I should pay more taxes, but, in both cases, but, everything they take from me go to reduce the debt, so that unborn baby's grandchild is not going to be suffering. I tell you, I asked a guy a week ago, interesting, I said, you're in an airplane with your grandson, just the two of you, and it crashes, and you got 8 days' food. You're down to 1 day. Who gets the meal, you or your grandchild? He said, oh, the grandchild does. I says, then why don't you think that way when you think of what you're taking off the table now? Somebody's got to pay for it.
Given the approach that you just spelled out, and then you think about the Boehner plan and the Reid plan and all these different plans, and Obama's plan, and we talked about balance on this broadcast. A lot of there have been some Republicans that have said, you know, we just can't go along with anything that raises revenue. Where do you stand on that issue?
Well, if raising revenue means you make some adjustments and loopholes, I'm for raising revenue. If it means, I'm not finished though, if it means guys like me no longer get, so I won, okay? I didn't need, you buy fire insurance, God forbid, last thing you want is to put a claim in under your fire insurance policy. If you don't get your premiums back. They took the risk, you paid for them to take the risk, deal done. Same with me, 18 years old, who the hell knows what I'm going to end up doing, or where I mean, frankly, my high school principal told my mother she was wasting a little bit of money they had sending me to college because I'd be out by Christmas. By the way, I worked overtime to almost make his prophecy come true, but that's another story. The fact is, I won. I shouldn't get a nickel from the government, but the government should not take advantage of this money to propagate more of what it does. We spent, what, $900 billion on the stimulus? Unemployment's it's not 9.2, unemployment's 13, 14, 15%. Arbitrarily, they say, if you don't look for a job, you're no longer unemployed. Well, go tell the woman who's now staying home, telling the children, you're going to have peanut butter and jelly for lunch every day instead of ham and cheese. Somebody, the numbers mean one thing to me, purchasing power. So when you reduce income, you reduce purchasing power. This, as I said, this is not complicated. This is simple.
Ken, anytime we have a wealthy individual come on and say that they believe they should pay more taxes, we get lots of email that says, well, go ahead. Why don't you? Who's stopping you? Write your check. You're arguing for a change in the entire tax structure so that it benefits society, I guess?
Look. I'm saying that if you study the philosophy of what Social Security was back in the 30s, the idea was there'd be a safety net.
Yeah.
That you didn't have to, at that point in time, people who had nothing to look forward to. My father and mother needed their Social Security checks. They needed them. Well, they didn't need them in the later years because I was around, but God forbid, if I hadn't succeeded, my parents would have needed it. They should get it.
Now, people are going to listen to what you're saying, and they're going to think that you are advocating what the Democrats are coming on saying, and you do not agree with the leadership of the country at this point.
Let me make it very clear, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate mail because of this, and that's okay. I think our sitting president is acting so unpresidential. I think, for example, and by the way, he's a master at what I learned in political science 101, glittering generalities. Fat cats, okay? Now, I say to him, call me a fat cat, but let me tell you what I've done with my life. Oh, I didn't mean you, I meant somebody. Well, guess what? As long as there are exceptions, you can't use the expression, okay? He's dividing us as a nation. He's not bringing us together. He's willfully dividing us. He's petulant. Last Friday night, they're coming to the White House tomorrow. The reality is, we believe in a government of three legs, all equal. So if Boehner and Reid, well, Reid will really do whatever he tells them, but if Boehner had said, I'm not coming unless you speak to me in a respectful way, I am the third in line to the presidency. Ronald Reagan would never go into the Oval Office without his jacket on. That's how much he revered the presidency. If this guy worked like hell to be president, okay? He's got it. Behave like president. Let me look to you as a model of how we should behave. So what does he say? Fat cats, jet planes. What's the purpose? The purpose is simple. Us versus them. And that's the thing I fear most about the future of America is divide us. Divide us, we all lose. And this has got to stop. And if he's listening or one of his people are listening, you can quote me exactly for what I said. He is not acting presidential. He is behaving in a way designed, in my opinion, to divide us, to make us look at each other with skepticism, with suspicion. That's the end of America as we know it when that happens. The deficit we're going to get through. The debt limit, it'll all come. But the destruction he is inflicting by his behavior will carry on long after we've settled the debt limit.
Can I just say amen?
I would be shocked if he did, but
well, no, because I think this. We've been having a big debate on this show for the past couple of weeks about this, and I didn't know what ultimately you were going to say, and you gave me a little hard time before the commercial, before you came out.
Look,
no, and I have to say, this is a completely and utterly reasonable way to approach and think this whole issue through. And I just wanted to say that to you, because I know that we've sparred over this issue, but
Look, I told you I read all your books, I read all your columns, but notwithstanding that, I believe you believe what's right in your mind, and I believe what's right in my mind. But the issue here is not.
But we can hold hands on a lot of these things.
No, exactly. The issue is not about money and about debt limits and about deficits and about spending. The issue, purely and simply, is about what's best for America. Look, let me tell you something. I'll be 76 September 16th. I am having the time of my life. My wife and I always talk about what a great, and we have problems. You know, the one thing about the good Lord, he gives us all a dose. Everybody gets a dose, one way or the other. And that's good, because it gives us empathy for somebody else. I spend most of my life now raising money for charities. Let me tell you something. When I want to raise $100 million, I don't go to the postman. I don't go to the plumber, which my father was. I go to very rich people. Because only very rich people can write checks that size. And they do. Look at Paul Jones. Look at Druckenmiller. Look at Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs has given us $20 million for our charter school up in Harlem. Okay, and that's not unusual. This goes on in America every day. And this is, you know, I'm only assuming, and maybe it's a bad assumption, I'm assuming the president and his wife both went to college on scholarships, because when you read the backgrounds, there was no enormous wealth to pay for tuition after tax. You know where that money comes from? It comes from rich people. Because every single day, every university in America loses money on every single student they admit. Costs more to educate. So if you don't have endowments, if you don't have annual giving by alumni, if you don't have fat cats, okay, it's a pejorative in his mind. I wear it as a badge of honor, because I say to a kid, I did it, you can do it. If somebody of limited intellect like me can do it, no, I'm serious, you can do it. I look at Bernie, I look at Arthur, I look at Pat Farrer, I look at the four of us, 325,000 jobs in America. I've taken over a little company in California, which I'm not going to pitch, because I don't want to be accused of promoting. That's the next thing I'll be. Well, he took advantage of his time to pump the stock. It's all about job creation. There's one issue America needs right now: jobs. Look at the Martin Act in New York. Take that as a free. In the hands of the wrong official, it's a nuclear bomb that does no good. Look at what Elliot Spitzer, my friend Elliot Spitzer, did to AIG, to Citicorp, to Marsh McClellan. Look at what, I would argue till the cows come home, that if Hank Greenberg, and by the way, full disclosure, we're very close friends. I love the man. I respect him. He's an American hero, not only in business, but what he did as a kid on the beaches in Normandy, okay? I respect this man enormously. I respect his family. They're good people. Take what Hank writes, check after check after check for charity. Guess what? That law needs to go away, because if it has the potential to do that damage in the hands of somebody as unscrupulous as Elliot Spitzer, you can't have a law like that, because the destructive side of it.
Kim, we were having a conversation off air beforehand, and
right.
Joe brought up the point that what you need is equal access to opportunity and equal access to education. That this is not about taking and just redistributing wealth.
Right.
That there are problems for people who do not have education levels. If you look at the unemployment level for those who don't have a high school or a college degree, it's much, much higher. How do we fix that? Now, you talk about some of the giving that's been done, but how do we as a nation fix that problem?
Well, let me tell you, and the problem is going to get worse. Let me give you an example. Again, trying to make it palatable, understandable. NYU Medical Center is going completely electronic. You walk in and you put your hand in a dock, and it reads your palm, and all your records come up. Wherever you are in the hospital for joint diseases, the eye center, wherever you are, the cancer center. So we have complete coordination. Now, the idea is paperless. Think of this. The guy that cuts the tree, the guy who makes it into paper, the guy who delivers the paper, the guy from NYU on our loading dock that unloads the truck, The people that pick up the waste, the people that pick up the waste from the people who pick it up in the building, those jobs are all going to go away, and they should. But the problem is, and this is why I am so maniacal about education, we aren't educating people to go to the next level. Jack Welch makes a wonderful point. He says, look, we're trading menial jobs for better jobs. The problem is we aren't training enough people to take advantage of the better jobs. Everybody wants a better life. Everybody wants more status. I mean, this is human.
So that's the NYU Medical Center. It's the Ken Langone Medical Center.
It's Elaine and Kenneth G. Langone.
Right.
Elaine A. and Kenneth. Yeah, and you know what?
I know you didn't say it, but
let me say this to you. I have had more than my fair share of success, and I've loved everything I've done. I have never so much loved what I'm doing as I'm doing in that place right now. The fun I'm having, the satisfaction. Bernie asked me, well, we'll never have another Home Depot. I said, well, maybe you won't, Bernie, but I got the medical center. And all I can tell you is there's something to look forward. And I tell all you old geezers like me, look forward to something every day and you won't feel as old as you are.
I mean, it's just hard. I understand what you're saying, but if you could convince the president that it's just as virtuous to give someone a job as it is to give someone
money,
to redistribute wealth from someone who's rich, I mean, that might take care of everything right there, wouldn't it? I mean, we might have a completely different mindset.
Let me tell you what I'm forced to conclude. I believe this president's beyond help. Let me tell you why. This is, right now, what we're engaged in his case, is a political campaign, not a campaign to raise a debt limit. This is the beginning of the 2012 presidential elections.
It's really the middle of the campaign for the 2012. It's been going on for a while.
And guess what? The day you take over, you are president of every American, no matter what their political persuasion. None. He's behaving like we got to get him. We got to get these fat cats. I'll never talk about what I have, but I will tell you this. If you add up everything I spent in my life for my wife and my family, it's a pittance compared to the amount of money Elaine and I have given away. It's a pittance.
And 320,000 jobs.